And preparing to live stream. Got it. And I guess we're live here. So I forgive me, everyone. Welcome to Getting Back to Zero, Thursday edition. I am out in California trying to figure this thing out. So it's been a couple of weeks, but it's Jeff, and it is Thursday edition. And it's good to be back. I'm out on location. I guess we're doing this remote, but from California. I'm still out dealing with closing up shop for my dad with my sister, and just out here for a couple of weeks. So wanted to got a guest on tonight who we tried to go Tuesday, but we'll have him back on. I'm still struggling with the voice a little bit, but I don't know what's going on. I've done my first 3 COVID tests. I've never taken one before, never had it, but everything's coming up negative. So I think I just have lost a voice. Maybe it was because of the Bengals win on this weekend, but don't know. But for those of you that don't know, today is a pretty big day for me. It is my 2-year soberversary. February 3rd of 2020 was when I started this for the second or third time. I guess second official time. Well, I don't know. There have been so many day ones. But today is, and I just got from a friend, and this is an AA chip, but this is my 2-year coin, which means the world to me. There's a lot that went into that, and I greatly appreciate that. The journey's been fantastic. I went last night with a friend out here who's starting his journey. I went to I'm blanking on this recovery, ends with a C. God, anyways, I'm blanking on it. Recovery program, which is actually a faith-based program that went with last night, and it was it was interesting. The speaker was talking about some people can quit on day one. They can wish or pray or try or ask to be cured, if you want to say, to have the to find sobriety, and for some it's a one-day process. For others it's a journey, and the question was, why is that for some and why not? And this was a faith-based, and I don't talk, your faith or your thing is your business, and I don't preach that to anyone, but why some people get it and some not. And I thought, for me, if I had gotten my wish 2 years ago, my wish, my prayer, whatever you want to say, I would have woken up sober the next day, and it would have been the end of it. I would have been cured. I would have been free from the desire to drink alcohol. If that had happened, I would have missed out on everything that I've gotten through this journey. So for me, this journey was probably more important than just getting alcohol lifted. So for whatever reason, I would have been cheated out of a lot of things if I hadn't had to do all the hard work. So that little 2-year coin means the world to me. And I want to start off with that. Our good buddy, got to figure out how to remove my pen here. We got Todd on here, buddy. How you doing, Todd? Welcome.
I'm good, Jeff. How are you?
I'm really good. I'm gonna I don't know how to split screen. We'll just keep it on speaker right now. But I have a little bit of a voice thing, and I just wanted, so for those of you that are nerds like me and know the Partridge or Brady Bunch in and out, I sound like Peter Brady when he was going through puberty right now. But it's a great episode, by the way, because that's when they sang some good songs. But you, Todd, you have, I think you're 3 months ahead of me. You had 2 years in October. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes. Congrats to you, by the way.
Well, congrats to us is what I got to say. I was talking to someone else tonight that was newer in recovery, and I think the topic of what worked, what made a difference. And for me, it's hands down, it was connection. It wasn't a book. It wasn't a program. It wasn't a podcast. It wasn't the pill. It was when I finally started talking to people like yourself that are in the same journey as me. That's when the magic happened. And, some people are nervous about being on a podcast or whatever you call this thing, or talking in front of a big group. I don't think that matters. I think literally, though, I think talking to just one person that's in the same boat is critical. So what I wanted to start off, and we'll just kind of roll with it. But I want to hear, because I've got some ideas of my own. I want to hear with you. Where are you today at 2 years, or go back to whatever your 2-year soberversary? What was different, or maybe even from year one or from day one? Because I'm still seeing new changes every day.
Yeah, so and I do too. And it's one of the things that's fascinating about this whole journey. And you're right. It's the journey is that's the payoff. The 2-year mark felt different to me than the 1-year mark. The 1-year mark felt more like a graduation, sort of. I felt like I had gotten through to the other side at 1 year. I felt like I had gotten through most of the crap, and I had lived to tell about it, and was really enjoying the other side, and was fascinated by how much I enjoyed the other side. But it was it wasn't easy, but it was without a doubt, it was worth it. And then I kind of feel like between year 1 and 2, that's when a lot of the work in earnest started, even though it felt like I had been doing a lot of work that first year. And I think I had been, but I think the work crystallized a little for me after the first year. I say this, and I could talk to you in 6 months from now and probably be working on stuff that I don't even know I need to work on right now. But I felt like I had a little bit clearer idea of the work that was ahead of me in year 2. And it felt a little less like work. And I think that was because I was just more comfortable in my sobriety. I was really liking it. But I was just more comfortable in it. I was, which I think just happens with time. But to your point about connection, it also happens with connection. And I remember, like 4 or 5 months in, I was talking to my therapist, and she was like, and I was telling her, this is going pretty well. I've had some rough spots, but I'm doing it. I'm not really having any, I didn't feel too much like I was white knuckling it by that point. And she said, you're doing this alone. She said, who do you talk to about this stuff? And I said, well, you. And she said, you're doing this alone. You need a community. And I was like, no, I'm fine. I'm doing this. I haven't had a drink in 5 months. I'm liking it. I want to keep going. Like, what's the problem? And that was right around the time TLC started up at the beginning of COVID. And at the beginning, I thought, I don't know if this is my thing. And I was sort of hesitant to dive in. But after a little while of dabbling.
Were you hesitant to dive in to share, or to just join a group?
I think both. I think both. I just didn't know if it was my thing, which is kind of weird because I'm a big connection person, and I always have been. And looking back, I would have thought, yeah, this is my thing. But I don't know, I was a little, it's funny, I kind of hid it from my wife at first. I didn't talk about it a lot with her. It felt kind of secretive. I felt weird about connecting with strangers who I just met.
Did you feel weak?
Not weak.
Because I had a little bit of, I should be able to do this on my own.
Yeah,
admitting that I was having to ask for help, that I had to walk into a room, whether it was virtual or with my tail between my legs, and would expose my pride, my damaged pride, and
Yeah.
say,
I definitely had issues with, you know, feeling as if my story, my, you know, where I came from, what, you know, that it wasn't interesting enough. It wasn't, it just wasn't interesting enough. I had some of those issues where like people don't.
did you have that you, because my life wasn't bad enough to be a drunk.
Yeah.
So it was obvious that, you know, if I had a broken everything and all the rotten luck, but I had so much going for me. How dare I mean, I must be weak as hell if I've got a problem when I'm not, you know, in an abusive situation or whatever. There's so many these people. So I just felt, God, the problem really is me. What is wrong? I got something seriously wrong with me.
Yeah, and I think it also, in hindsight, I never realized any of this at the time, but I think all of that held me back for a long time from finally getting to the point where I admitted to myself that it would be better if I stopped drinking, and that I couldn't get rid of the issues I had drinking unless I stopped. That was the only way. And it took me a long time to get there. And part of the reason it did, I think, was because I could always go back and say, well, you know, you've got a decent job. The cops aren't showing up to your house. Your marriage is okay. Your kids are fine. Everything looks good on the outside. And of course, deep inside, there's part of you that doesn't want to take that final step because it's scary and you think life's going to end. So you feed into that by coming up with all this stuff. And some of that stuff was, you haven't put your car in a ditch. You haven't suffered, you know, major childhood trauma that a lot of people have. It was almost like I didn't have something that made my drinking issues understandable, or there wasn't a good enough excuse for them. So yeah, it was kind of like, well, that's all you. But it held me back.
It's funny, Todd, because I met a guy through AA, and he told his story really bad. I mean, just horrible situation. And I think the next week I gave my story, and I've never worn handcuffs, never been arrested, no DUI, didn't lose my family, didn't lose a job, all those things. And I told this, and he turned and he said, you haven't lost your family, you haven't lost your job, you never. And he was like, you're an asshole. I mean, he was like, how dare you? What are you even doing in here? And then I kind of felt like, oh God, I should be in the junior level. I mean, he was ticked. Like, yeah. How can you have a problem when you haven't had any of that? And I felt ashamed that I hadn't hit that bottom. Like I wasn't cool enough to be in the club. Yeah. You know, it's like, well, let me go out and I'll steal some Altoids and get arrested so I can feel like I belong, and blame it on alcohol. You know, I mean, he was a little bit bitter.
Well, I had a lot of conversations with myself, and made deals with myself where I said, okay, if this happens, you know, it's time to stop. Or if this happens, then that will force me to stop. And then one day it was like someone slapped me in the face, and I thought, what are you doing? Why are you waiting around for something like that to happen? Why are you waiting for that to happen?
Do you have an answer? Do you have an answer for that? Because that's it makes sense. Until it happens, I'm not going to change.
Yeah, I think it was because I didn't want to take ownership over the decision. It was almost like I was powerless. And I wasn't going to make the decision to stop drinking on my own without something, like that happening. And and then one day I realized you're not powerless. You can make this decision. You can make it today, if you want to. But it was like I was being held hostage, and I didn't want the decision because I didn't want to make it. I wasn't there yet. I wasn't ready. And it's funny, in my head it was like, well, you're a responsible adult, and therefore if X, Y, or Z happens, the responsible thing to do is to stop drinking.
God, it's just, see, this is what goes back to what I was saying about connection. It's so good not to be alone. I sit here and I laugh at you, but I'm not even looking at you. I'm looking at a mirror,
Oh, I know. The what floored me about
And I
when I
didn't realize how good looking I was either looking at that
well,
mirror,
yeah,
but that's
you
okay.
never look better.
Yeah.
What floored me about TLC early on was, you had, it's mostly women. It's getting to be a little more male, but it was mostly women. But and you had people from all sorts of different backgrounds and different experiences and different parts of the country, even world. And then the experiences themselves were as varied as you can get, from someone who maybe had, 6 drinks a week but wanted to make a change, to someone who was drinking 6 drinks before noon and wanted to make a change. But in all of that, diversity, you'd get onto a meeting, and at, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 points during a meeting, you're sitting there going, oh yeah, holy shit,
Yeah.
someone else. And that, to your point, that connection, that knowledge, that shared experience, regardless of whether it's just a sliver of someone's or a bigger part of someone's, it's so valuable. And I mean, the first time when I read Laura's book, that was the first. I mean, I was 44 years old at that point. That was the first time I read an account of someone who I felt struggled with alcohol in a similar manner as I did. At 44 years old, had been drinking since 17,
Mhm.
16, 17. And that was the first time I read something that I remember thinking, oh my God, there's someone else out there who struggles in the same way I do. And it was very it was a very significant sense of relief that I was not the only one out there dealing with what I was dealing with in my head.
I think the connection thing, the other one for me, I couldn't give myself hope by myself. And it was when I talked to other people that were in the same boat, and I saw that things were going well for them. That was the first time that I was able to believe that there was a chance. That was
Yeah.
when I couldn't, I didn't, I could not, I could read the steps on how to do it, but until I got to hope, I don't think I believed not that I could, but that believed that I would do it. I don't know, but
Yeah.
that was critical for me as well.
That's a huge part of it. I remember one thing that helped nudge me over the point of, because I think a lot of people are like this. I took a couple of 3-month breaks. I did a lot of negotiating with myself. I tried every moderating thing under the sun. And it was at the end of the day, it was all because I didn't want to take that final step and say, I'm done. It was really scary. It was, there's a lot about that that's terrifying. And one of the things that gave me a nudge that I needed to get over that line was every person I talked to, every story I read, everyone I listened to who had given up alcohol, and had made the decision to quit for good, they all talked about how it was one of the greatest decisions they'd ever made, you know, in varying degrees of praise but I kept, after I heard that enough, I thought, okay, there's something there and that I should pay attention to, or everybody's telling the same lie and it's all a big joke on me. But I thought, why don't you give this a chance? This thing that everyone says was such a difference maker in their life. They can't all be telling the same lie. So that was really big for me, because I think once you hear that enough, I mean, you have no idea at the time that you decide to give it up. You have no idea what they're talking about or what's out there. You got to make that leap. But once you hear it enough, it seeped in to me enough where I thought, give it a shot. What do you have to lose? So that's a huge part of
it. And I didn't plan on this to be a connection thing, but I think even my successes I took as flukes. You know, the blind squirrel finding the acorn, or whatever that phrase is, but I couldn't give myself credit. And it's like, you know, getting this little 2-year deal today made me understand, hey, maybe this is a pretty big accomplishment. Maybe I am doing something. I mean, I'm to the point where if someone gives me a sticker, I'm thrilled. You know, I'll take that any day as a pat on the back, because I can't give myself stickers. I know. So there was someone doing that for me.
Yeah,
is huge. And
it
suddenly it validated that what I'm doing is appreciated, or you know, it gave it worth to me.
Well, and it's people who have done this. It's a community of people who understand exactly what you've gone through, and they understand what a big deal it is. And I tell people a lot, I'm like, you know, think of how many people you know in your life that that probably have drinking issues. A lot of people have drinking issues. It's easy to have drinking issues. It's really hard to do something about it, and not a lot of people do. Mm-hmm. And it's even harder deciding to do something about it, and then, you know, quote unquote succeeding at it. It's really hard. And if you haven't tried it, and if you haven't tried and failed, it's hard to truly understand how difficult that is.
But when you go back to connection, for people to realize, you know, we talk about the relapses that I had, you know, that we've all, because I think someone that's new looks at people who are in the rooms. The bulk of the people in the rooms are the ones that are successful. Mm-hmm. So they see everyone doing it, and then if they're struggling, well, then I don't belong. And you see everyone doing it and go, well, wait a minute. They make it look easy, and this isn't easy. This is sobriety's a mother. It's hard.
It is. And one of the reasons why I like interacting with people who are early on, and it's valuable to me, is because I don't want to forget that. I don't, you know, as we get farther away, you know, I know we're supposed to say one day at a time and all that, but I have zero desire to ever drink again, and can't imagine that I ever will. You never know, but as you get farther away from kind of those early days, I think it's important to stay connected to that, to remember how difficult it can be. And yeah, there's at least for me personally, there's an urge to kind of want to tell someone, like, you know, I just want to tell them, just trust me, just get through it. You won't regret it. And you can tell someone that till you're blue in the face, but they've got to do it. And you just want to see that happen so badly, because Like I love reading about people when they say, I went on my first vacation and didn't drink and I loved it. And I'm so glad I did it. I love that stuff because that, to me, that was those moments were, those were big moments for me. And once I did something like that once, it was a building block that I used as a springboard for the next time and the next time and the next time. And so when you see people doing that themselves, because you have to do it yourself, you can't read about it, you can't listen to someone tell you about it, you got to do it yourself. But it's so powerful when you do, that I love hearing people talk about that when it happens to them. And there's a, you want to hold someone's hand and help them get through it, but at the same time, it's they're going to be better off if they just got to do it themselves. But it's valuable to me to stay connected with those people, because I don't ever want to forget. I told someone this recently. I don't ever want to forget how I felt in like the 2-3 months leading up to my decision to quit. I don't ever want to forget about how tortured I was, and how I don't ever want to feel like that again, but I don't want to forget how that felt either, because that was powerful. It was powerful enough to finally make me say, I've had enough.
I fear, I really fear ever saying the words or feeling the words, I got this.
Yeah.
Because that's when, just lost dad, and I had driving back out here. There were ample opportunities I was afraid of before I started that trip, and excuses, I'm great with those, to drink. And luckily, I'm smart enough to know that I'm weak enough to know that I should never say I got this. And I made calls and talked to people and told them what I was doing, and had people checking in with me. And I would take, pictures of the hotel room as I was, just to show people, just whatever. But it was the little things, but it's the insurance. Because if I ever say I got this, if I ever believe that, because I said I got this for what, 40 years, 35 years. Yeah. That paid off well.
And that the other side of the coin is, that's why for me it's valuable for me to hear from people who, I mean, you hear about someone who said, I hadn't had a drink in 7 years, and then I did. And I think, man, how does that happen? But it happens.
Mhm.
And they probably never thought it was going to happen. And so it's a good jolt for me to, because I feel, pretty strong in my sobriety, but I'm also not dumb enough to think that it can't happen to me.
What would you say to yourself tomorrow morning if you relapsed tonight and drank? What would you say to yourself tomorrow morning? Be honest.
Oh man, I know I'd have a battle. I'd I'd have a battle beating the shit out of myself, and then telling myself not to beat the shit out of myself.
Okay, well, what would you say to me if I drank tonight, tomorrow? Would you beat the shit out of me?
No, I'd say don't beat the shit out of yourself.
And that's my point, that I will forgive you and say, hey, you know what? You got 2 years. I don't care, whatever the time is. You had one day.
I know.
Let's take just what can we grow from that? Because if we do this right, tomorrow you could be even stronger in your recovery than you were today because of that. But I won't say that to myself. I'll say, you piece of crap, you loser.
Yeah,
I know. And
I know. Although I think I've gotten better. I certainly have a much better awareness and understanding that we do that to ourselves since I stopped drinking. And that just having that awareness is a big part of it. So hopefully when the time comes, if the time comes, however it comes, I can put that into practice. But yeah, we don't, I never realized how differently we talk to ourselves than we would a friend
But
who,
even that, Todd, is someone doesn't have to relapse, but can be beating themselves up because they're struggling more
right,
in early sobriety than other people seem to be, and saying, what's wrong with me? I'm not doing it right. I'm a loser. I'm not getting it. Um, but they wouldn't say that to someone else that was struggling. And that's
right.
hard to treat yourself like you treat others for the most part.
It is, but we should, and yeah, it is hard. It's,
Maybe that's why I got to rely on you. Maybe that's why I have to do this, connect with
yeah,
you, because I'm not going to say to myself the things that I probably need to hear. And that's why I need you to be.
one thing at about the year mark, I started talking to people more about this stuff, and I kind of put something on my own Facebook page. It wasn't a secret that I had stopped drinking, but a lot of people, acquaintances that I didn't see very often didn't know. And I started talking to people about it, and I would have people reach out to me about it. And I discovered very quickly having those conversations really invigorated me. I loved having those conversations. It was good for me. I mean, selfishly, it helped me. And I think part of it was it one, kept me connected to kind of what got me there to the point I was at. Two, I felt so grateful for people who had told their stories to me, and how much it helped me, that I had a very strong desire to pay that back to anyone who was interested, because I knew how much it helped me, and I wanted to help. If I could help someone else by telling my story, I was more than happy to do it. But
Let me ask you this. I love this because normally everyone picks on me and I love picking on you. Plus
great.
you have the voice to talk right now, but why didn't you tell people that you were getting sober at the beginning?
I don't know. That's a good question. I should have an answer to that by now.
Mine was fear
Um,
of failure.
yeah,
I'll
although
surprise you. I'll surprise you with my success
yeah,
once I get it, but I'm not going to have to face you with my failure.
you know what? A lot of it was for me was I was worried about, I was worried that when people found out I stopped drinking, they were going to think that I got out of bed and poured myself a shot of vodka. That's what kind of drinker I was.
Mm-hmm.
That there was all this stuff going on behind the scenes. That I was really a terrible dad and a terrible husband, and because what kind of person stops drinking?
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
you got to have a big problem if you're just going to give up alcohol like that. That means you had a big problem. I
Yeah.
mean, that was my thinking at the time, and I was really self-conscious of that. And my
Well, no one's going to buy when I said I'm going to quit drinking for health reasons. They'd go, "Yeah,
yeah,
nice try, Jeff. You
yeah.
don't even know how to spell the word health. Nice try."
Well, and my wife early on, when someone would come up to her, like if I wasn't there, and they'd say, "Oh my gosh, I heard Todd stop drinking." She was she would tell me, I'm always quick to point out, like, he didn't drink that much, like, it wasn't that bad.
Mhm.
And at the time, I was self-conscious of those conversations and thinking people may have thought that about me. Now I don't really care. But at the time I cared a lot. And that was a big thing for me. I felt like I needed to construct, and I didn't have this worked out. I felt like I needed to construct the narrative that put me in the best light, that made me look good in doing it. And in my head, I didn't have that worked out. I didn't have a good story to tell people why I was stopping drinking. And so that tripped me up, and it kept me from being as public as I maybe, would have been about it. And I spent a lot of time and energy
I
thinking about,
isolated.
huh?
I didn't go to the parties where, and it wasn't because I didn't want to drink. I didn't want to have to see people see me not drinking and have to explain why I wasn't drinking.
Oh,
So it's just, I didn't,
I
I just
I
hid.
spent so much time thinking about those situations and how I was going to handle it. And I was just telling someone today, I was I was at a soccer game last night with my best friend since we were 5 years old, and a couple other guys that I knew, and then a couple that I didn't know. It was kind of a big group, and a decent drinking event for a lot of people. And the thought of drinking and me not drinking and would they be drinking and all that stuff it was never even a thing for that event last night. And I was laughing at how much time and energy I used to put into. I mean, before I would have spent a week
But
thinking
it goes
thinking
back,
about this.
Todd, that how you see yourself and how you think other people see you
Yeah.
versus if one of your buddies was there and just saying, "Oh no, I'm not drinking these days," you would have probably, "Oh, good for you," and
Yeah.
continued. But when it's you saying it or it's me saying it, the record skips and the
Yeah.
whole place stops and turns, and no one's looking at the soccer game. They're all going, "Todd, you quit drinking," which isn't the case, but that's how
No.
I felt it was.
Yeah, I always tell people I felt like I had a neon sign above my head that said he's not drinking.
Mhm.
And then it followed me around the room wherever I went.
Yeah.
And so you spend a lot of and I remember the first time I was it wasn't a party or anything, it was at someone's house and there were people over and it was just neighbors and stuff like that. And this was probably within the first 6 months. And one of the women, she knew I wasn't drinking, but she asked me how it was going, and I kind of told her, and it was funny. I was trying to we were in the kitchen, but yet I was trying to keep the conversation just between us because I didn't want it to get to blow up into this whole conversation. And she said something like, well, I'm really proud of you. Good for you. And that felt so good to hear. It was one of the first times I had heard that from, outside of my little circle. And I have not forgotten that. I will not forget that. And I tell people all the time, if I have a conversation about a friend of theirs, giving up drinking or trying to or whatever, I tell people, I said, tell them you're proud of them. Tell them you admire what they're doing, because that goes a long way. So
I think, go ahead.
no, that is something that when I look back, there's a couple things in the first 3, 4, 5 months, I call them signs from the universe. That was something that really helped propel me further. Just that little comment at someone's house.
And those are, I mean, I think, I'm guessing people that are in recovery, they all have that little comment that someone didn't even realize how important it was. It's just that little comment that just made all the difference.
Yeah.
So we shouldn't talk about this, but what are the negatives that you found of 2 years of sobriety? And if you can't think of one, I'll give you mine.
Well, I will tell you, well, I mean, broadly speaking, you have stuff come to the surface that you don't expect. At least I did. And you have it's a negative, but it's also a positive. You have this innate knowledge now that when something, I do anyway, that when something comes to the surface, if it's big enough, it's not going to go away. There's nowhere to run with it. for me. And so it's like,
With it or from it?
from it. And so there's this confrontation where you have to admit to yourself, you don't have a choice. It's a truth that you can't run from anymore. That whatever that issue is not going to go anywhere until you resolve it. And that doesn't mean you have to resolve it that day or that moment, but I remember the first time I had that realization, it scared the crap out of me because I wasn't used to it. I subconsciously would file it away and drink, and it would slowly get filed away further back in the file cabinet. And of course it would come up in various ways later, but then you drink and it gets pushed back down, and that's taken away. And so you're forced to confront things that you did not expect you would have to confront. And that can be a negative, but on the whole, I think it's a positive, but it can be jarring to deal with. But that's life without a numbing agent.
Yeah, I think I'm the same one, because it was, I said, I'll use the term again, but someone shot me down on it and laughed about it. But I said, sobriety has taken away the luxury of being able to drink away my problems.
Yeah.
And someone said, luxury? You're calling luxury, and I realized that, but that's, the words weren't talking about that, but it was things that I felt I could drown them for a while until tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then, but who cares about tomorrow?
Right.
I just need to get through today's all that matters. So if I can drown them until tomorrow, well, tomorrow I might have to re-drown them, but I'll worry about that tomorrow. So it forced me to have to face, address, process. It was like with losing dad, all that stuff. I would have drowned it,
Yeah. Oh,
and
yeah.
I would have let my tears come out while I was tanked, so I could maybe not even feel them coming out. But now I've had to feel all these things. Like you said, they're not going away, and I can't move them to tomorrow. I have to process, which is great in so many ways, but it's also, I hope you're ready, because here they come.
Yeah.
But that's the good of that also, is all the stuff I got to process going back to dad, that I got so much more out of, because I was forced to deal with them that day. And that turned them into, I allowed them to turn what was negative into an extremely positive thing. So I don't want it to sound like it's a negative, that there's plus or minuses on that, but even the negatives that I have to face this stuff today, it's forcing me to learn how to process them properly. So now I can put them away, and I don't have to worry about them coming back. So even the negative side has got a hugely positive outcome.
And I want to tell you something about your dad passing and what you wrote about it. And I know, you spoke about it, and I tried to convey this to you after you had your podcast, I think right after he had died. But hearing you talk about that experience for you, and being there and being present, and what that was like and what that meant was extremely inspirational to me, and made me, one of the things that blows my mind about sobriety is the discoveries of things that are better in life that you had no idea would be better. I love that about sobriety. I have not lost someone close to me since I stopped drinking, and frankly hadn't given that stuff much thought. But hearing you talk about it and write about it, really made me, it made me grateful all over again for you being sober, for me being sober. I just, and it wasn't my dad, and it wasn't me losing someone close to me like it was for you, but I still felt
Well, we all, he represented, I mean, it was my dad, but it represented, it doesn't have to have a name. He didn't have to have a name or a
right.
face. We
Well,
all have that, a person or a emotion like that.
yeah. I want you to know it was very impactful for me to hear that stuff from you. And it made me so grateful that you're sober and that I'm sober. And it was a huge reminder to me of how this serves us in small times and big times.
Well, it was, and I've talked about this. I don't want to rehash it, but me being sober was the greatest gift at that moment that I was ever able to give him.
Yeah.
And he wasn't even, I mean, he was in and out, but I don't even, who knows if he realized it, but it was still, and it was also the greatest gift I could get by giving him. It was just incredible.
Yeah.
And now I can put his passing, I dealt with it and I did it right. And now I can put it, it's still going to be with me, but it's not going to be beating the crap out of me and something I'm regretting and going, gosh, I wish I had, or, why didn't I? And, oh, once again, you loser, you blah, blah, blah.
And you'll have that for the rest of your life.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I also have that I just dealt with a really tough situation and I survived.
Right.
And that's so now I didn't believe I could do that, or I didn't sure I could do it. Now going into the next one, whatever that'll be, hey, I've done this before. I can do this again. Just
that's huge.
take a breath and let's do it the right way.
And if I do this a lot, I contrast a situation. Like I said, I haven't had something as big as my dad dying, but
yet.
Right. But I always contrast with something when shit comes up. I always contrast like how I'm handling it now versus what would this look like if I were drinking? And that always gives me some relief, some silver lining, some like feeling of, well, it could be worse. I could be drinking right now. And that calms me. That makes me feel a little bit better about whatever it is that's bothering me.
Well, it's, and this is all part of playing the tape and all that, but everyone, boy, must have been hard to deal with your dad, without drinking, sober. That must be hard to go through that without, and I would have did the same thing, but now I look back at how hard it would have been to drink while going through it. Because pretty sad when you're watching your dad pass, but you're looking at the clock going, well, they're going to stop selling beer in a half hour. I got to get out of here now. And that's pretty hard.
Yeah.
Or hugging your sister and worried about, is she smelling that I smell like a brewery right now? That's hard. Or crashing down and wanting to run out to the car and hit the cooler.
Yeah.
And wondering, am I going to be out there when he passes and miss that? That's hard.
Or showing up the next day, hung over and not fully present.
Drinking is pretty damn hard too. At least it was for me. I didn't realize how hard it was because that was maybe what I was accustomed to. But now I look back and go, geez, that was work.
So when you were telling one of those stories about your dad and not looking at the clock, wondering, have I spent enough time here? is it acceptable to go get that beer now? One of the things that popped into my head was, one of the closest persons I have had that I've lost in my life is my godfather. And this was probably 7 years ago. And I remember sitting in my car in the parking lot of the hospice facility where he was, Googling the closest liquor store.
God.
Because the reason it was okay was because I was going to buy liquor for the group, not just me. His family was there and whatever. But I thought I had never thought much about that until you mentioned that, and I thought, Jesus Christ, I was in the parking lot.
I don't know why I find it funny, but only because I'm laughing at myself. But Googling liquor stores, what time do they close?
Yeah. And the best part is my godfather would have found it very funny also.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's like, what are we doing?
You know what? And people that are saying, how can you laugh at these things? I can laugh because that's my past. Because because I can celebrate that I'm not there anymore, and that's
you're at
why.
peace with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if I was still doing it, I wouldn't be laughing about it. I'd be crying about it. But I got to smile because that's no longer how I'm living my life.
Yeah, and that's, like I said, that's a gift that is never going to stop giving.
God, we have those moments are just.
Yeah.
They weren't funny at the time. They were damn real. It's just go back and kick me, where, wake me up then. But well, look,
Yeah.
I'm gonna let you go.
Well, listen, congrats on your 2 years. I'm really happy for you. I'm proud of you. I hope you're patting yourself on the back today.
Well, I you know what? I'm patting us all, but today I am patting myself as well.
You should.
It's corny, but there's no way I could have done it without the guy that I'm staring at right now next to you. No, you know what I mean?
Who's here?
To think that, and people that don't know my relationship with Todd, I am joking, but there was an incident. So my joke is to think that I'm relying on a guy that once ran down the field naked at a major college football event, getting arrested. And there's a little bit of truth to it, correct?
I was going to say most of that is false. Not all of it. Most of it.
We'll get the full details of the truth, but that's magical. All right, buddy. Yeah. Hang on, stay here, and I'll. But thanks for being here, and we're getting this thing back and rolling now.
Anytime.
My voice.
Thanks for having me.
All right, buddy. Take care.
All right.